All right, so today we're diving into some interesting source material for a change. A single chapter from a novel, actually. You sent in chapter 9 of The Bell Jar.
Oh, wow.
And honestly, I gotta admit, I'm kind of curious to see what we can get out of this, what kind of facts we can pull from fiction, you know.
Yeah, well, that's what's so cool about fiction. Even though it's not, like a real event or a real report, um, it can still tell us so much about the human experience, like how we deal with all the pressures of society and even like the anxieties of a certain time. It's almost like in some ways it can be more revealing than just reading history, straight up.
Yeah, that's a good point. So, for anyone listening who hasn't read The Bell Jar, it's about this young woman, Esther Greenwood, back in the 1950s. And she's dealing with a lot, societal expectations, mental health struggles, trying to figure out her ambitions, all in a world that seems like it doesn't have much space for those things. And in this chapter, chapter 9, she's in New York City for an internship at a fashion magazine.
And right away, Plath sets up this huge contrast between the glamour of fashion, that whole superficial world,
Yeah.
and then Esther's inner turmoil.
Exactly. It's like we're seeing this perfect surface,
I know.
but underneath, something darker is going on. And speaking of darkness, one of the first things that I noticed was how Esther reacts to the Rosenberg's execution. You know it's coming up.
Oh, yeah, that's so important to the chapter. It just anchors us in that time, the 1950s, the whole Cold War thing, the Rosenberg trial. With the fear of communism and espionage, it was such a divisive issue back then, and Esther's so affected by what's going to happen to them. But then you have another intern, Hilda. She's practically excited about it, about their deaths.
Yeah.
Just highlights how much fear and suspicion were just a part of everyday life.
Yeah, it's fascinating how Plath uses that event from history, not just to set the scene, but to show how differently people were handling all that anxiety. Like Esther, she's empathizing with the Rosenbergs, almost like she connects with them somehow. And then you have Hilda, she's like totally accepting the narrative. You know the official story. She's embracing it.
Like those ideological battles, they were everywhere, even on a personal level. It makes you think. How many people were actually thinking for themselves back then versus just repeating what everyone else was saying?
That's a really interesting question. But then the focus shifts to something that seems lighter, fashion. But even fashion, it gets really symbolic in this chapter, don't you think?
Absolutely. Plath describes this color, bile green. It's all over the fashion world that Esther's a part of. And it's more than just a trend. It feels kind of sickly, like unsettling, reflecting this unease that's not just in Esther, but maybe in society as a whole.
Yes. And then there's the scene where the interns are being photographed. And they have to choose a prop. It represents what they want to be when they grow up. It's such a simple thing. But it says so much about what they want and what they're afraid of. Like Betsy picks an ear of corn, wants the traditional life. Hilda picks a hat maker's dummy, ambitious, wants to be a designer.
But Esther, she's completely lost. She mentions wanting to be a poet, but even that, she's not sure about it. Like, she doesn't really believe it can happen, that she can make it happen, not choosing a prop. Like, she can't even see a future for herself. It really shows how limited the roles for women were in the 50s.
Yeah, and it makes you wonder if this bile green, this sick feeling, isn't partly about being forced into a box, into this life she doesn't want, surrounded by this color that's like society making her feel sick.
That's a great connection. It shows the pressure on her to fit in,
Yeah.
to be what others want, even if it's not who she is.
Yeah. And about that pressure and conformity, things get really bad at the country club dance when she meets Marco. And here's where Plath's symbols get even stronger, I think.
Totally. Right from when he introduces himself as a woman hater.
Yeah.
There's this sense of dread, this tension, showing the power dynamic.
And then he gives her this diamond stick pin. Now, diamonds usually mean love it, right? Commitment. But for Marco,
Yeah.
it almost feels threatening.
Absolutely. It's like a messed up kind of romance. Like he's showing his dominance, not real love. And then he makes her tango with him. And it just gets worse.
That tango scene is so uncomfortable. It's not just a dance. It's like a fight for power. He's leading her, literally controlling every move, and she can't do anything about it. It's like a metaphor for how men in society, like Marco, try to control women.
And then it leads to that awful scene where he assaults her, physically and verbally.
Yeah.
It's shocking.
Yeah.
But it's also kind of typical of how women were treated back then. Their voices silenced.
It's just heartbreaking, and afterwards she just wants to find her friend Doreen, but Doreen's gone. Like, she's completely alone. And then she does something really drastic, goes up to the roof of her building and starts throwing her clothes off. I was stunned by that image. What do you make of it?
Wow, it's such a raw moment.
Yeah.
Earlier, Esther describes her clothes as mulish, like they have a mind of their own. telling her how to look and act.
Yeah.
So throwing them off the roof. It's like she's rejecting all that pressure, taking that control.
Yeah. Right. Like she's saying, I'm not going to be defined by these clothes, by what everyone expects anymore.
Exactly. It's like she's getting rid of the person she was told to be, even if she's not sure who she'll become next.
But it's also super vulnerable, right? She's out in the open, exposed. It's both defiant and desperate. It leaves you wondering what happens now.
That's what makes Plath so good. She leaves us hanging. At this uncertain moment, you have to confront how complex Esther's experience is and think about what might happen after such a huge act of rebellion.
Yeah, it definitely feels like a turning point, but we don't know if it's good or bad, and that's part of why this chapter is so captivating. But we'll get more into that and what happens after in the next part of our deep dive.
Looking forward to it. There's a lot more to explore here.
So welcome back to our deep dive into Chapter 9 of The Beldar. We're really getting into the emotions here. Sylvia Plath does an amazing job with that. Last time we left off with Esther Greenwood, she's in a really rough place. Just threw all her clothes off the roof after that horrible experience with Marco.
Yeah. And, that act, it can be interpreted in so many ways. Like
Yeah.
it's her rejecting what society expects of her, but it's also like she's super vulnerable and desperate.
Right. And even before that moment, Plath's kind of hinting at the whole clothing and identity thing throughout the chapter. Remember how Esther described her clothes as mulish?
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
That word is so powerful. Like it's saying her clothes are controlling her, telling her how she should be seen, how she should act. It's like she can't be herself because of them.
And that connects to the scene where they're choosing props for the photo shoot. Remember, each prop is like a possible future for them. Betsy picks the ear of corn, wants a traditional life. Hilda goes for the hat maker's dummy, super ambitious, wants to be a designer.
And Esther, she's totally lost. Says she wants to be a poet. But even that, it's like she doesn't believe it, that it could actually happen. Not picking a prop. It's almost like she can't even imagine a future. It shows how few options women had back in the 50s.
Yeah. And it makes you think, all that bile green stuff, that sick feeling. Maybe it's partly because she's being pushed into this life she doesn't want. Like she's surrounded by a color that's making her feel sick because of society.
That's a really interesting connection.
Yeah.
It's all about the pressure to fit in, to be what everyone expects, even if it's not who you really are.
Right. And speaking of pressure and expectations, things get really dark at the country club dance. When Esther meets Marco, Plath's use of symbols gets even more intense here.
Oh, for sure. The moment he says he's a woman hater, you can just feel the tension, the power dynamic shifting. It's ominous.
And then there's the diamond stick pin he gives her. Diamonds are usually about love, right? Commitment. But for Marco, it feels almost like a threat.
Yeah, definitely. It's like a twisted kind of romance. More about dominance than actual love.
Yeah.
And then forcing her into that tango just keeps getting worse.
Ugh, that tango scene is so creepy. It's not just a dance, it's him controlling her every move. And she can't do anything about it. It's like a metaphor for how men try to control women in society, just like Marco.
And then it leads to that awful assault.
Yeah.
Physically and verbally. It's so shocking. But also, it kind of reflects how women were treated back then. Their experiences were ignored. Their voices were silenced.
It's just devastating. And after that, she just wants to find her friend Doreen. But Doreen's not there. Esther's totally alone. And that's when she does something really drastic. Goes up to the roof, starts throwing her clothes off. That image is so powerful. What do you think it means?
Such a raw moment. Earlier, Esther talked about her clothes being mulish.
Yeah.
Like they have a mind of their own. So throwing them off the roof, it's like she's finally rejecting all that pressure, saying no more,
Yeah.
taking back control of her life.
Right. Like she's saying, I'm not going to be defined by these clothes anymore or by anyone's expectations.
Exactly. She's shedding that old identity, the one everyone else gave her. Even she doesn't know who she'll be next.
But it's also really vulnerable.
Right.
She's completely exposed. It's defiant and desperate at the same time. Makes you wonder what will happen to her now.
And that's what's so great about Plath. She doesn't give us easy answers. We're left at this uncertain moment, thinking about how complex Esther's experience is and what might happen after this big act of rebellion.
Yeah, it definitely feels like a turning point. But we don't know if it'll be good or bad. And that's part of what makes this chapter so interesting. But we'll talk more about that next time in the last part of our deep dive. What happens after and what it all means.
Can't wait. There's still so much to uncover here.
You know, it's amazing what you can find out just from looking at one chapter, this deep dive into Chapter 9 of the Bell Jar. It's been like peeling an onion. So many layers, so much going on underneath.
Yeah, it really shows you how good of a writer Sylvia Plath was. Every little detail is packed with meaning. The colors she uses, the props that are like symbols, even the words she picks, like calling Esther's clothes mulish.
Right. It's like she chose each thing carefully to show us Esther's inner turmoil and the pressure she feels from society and the anxieties of that whole time period. It all comes together to paint this really vivid picture of a young woman who's just trying to figure out where she fits in a world that feels so limiting.
And what's crazy is how relevant it still is today, even though it was written so long ago.
Yeah.
That pressure to fit in, trying to find who you are, feeling trapped by what people expect, those are things everyone goes through, no matter when or where you live.
Totally. I think that's why the bell jar is still so powerful. It speaks to something deep inside all of us, something about the human experience that's timeless.
And it makes you ask yourself some hard questions. What are the bile green things in our own lives? You know, those things that make us feel sick. What expectations are we trying to break free from? How can we be brave enough to shed those identities that don't fit and be who we truly are, even when it's scary?
Those are some seriously deep questions. And while the novel doesn't give us any easy answers, it does help us look at these issues and maybe even connect with Esther's story, knowing we're not alone in these struggles.
Exactly. And I think that's the real power of literature. It makes us feel empathy, it starts conversations, and it helps us wrestle with those tough questions, both as individuals and as a society.
Well said. So to our listener who suggested we do this deep dive, I hope you found this look at Chapter 9 of The Bell Jar insightful and maybe even a little bit thought-provoking.
And who knows, maybe it'll inspire you to read the whole book
Yeah.
and really dive deep into Esther's journey.
It's definitely a book that sticks with you. So with that, we're wrapping up our deep dive. Thanks for joining us as we explored all the layers of this amazing chapter.